If she dies out here, no one will notice. He said it without looking at me. Just kept his eyes on the highway ahead, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping the turn signal like he had all the time in the world. I didn't say anything back. Not then. My mouth went dry, my palms cold. Somewhere inside my chest, something collapsed quietly, like a shelf breaking in an empty pantry. The desert stretched on both sides, flat and burnt and merciless. Arizona sun had no kindness, just heat and silence. Brandon didn't turn his head once. He always had that calm voice, even when he was little. When he lied, when he stole, when he broke things and blamed the wind. I used to think it was charm. Now I knew better. I mean, he said casually, this road's barely used anymore. You'd think they'd shut it down completely. Nothing but sand and dead bushes for miles. I glanced at the speedometer. 65. Not slow enough to feel safe. Not fast enough to be a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. I was wearing my old cardigan, the blue one with the missing button. I'd put it on out of habit, not thinking it would be the only thing between me and the wind if he opened the door. Funny, the things you notice when you think someone might kill you. The silence stretched until I thought it would tear me open. He reached into the glove box and pulled out a granola bar. Want one? I shook my head. My throat was still locked. He ate it in 2 bites. You know, Tracy says you've been confused lately, forgetting things, repeating questions. That wasn't true. Not completely. You're almost 80, Ma. It's natural. I turned my head to the window. The heat shimmered over the road like a fever dream. There wasn't a single car in sight. Not behind. Not ahead. I didn't ask where we were going. He'd said clinic, but hadn't told me which one. I'd gotten in the car like always. Because when it's your child asking, you don't demand details. You don't imagine betrayal. You say yes. You button your sweater. You take your purse and climb in. Now I understood the mistake. Brandon cleared his throat. Thing is, if something happened out here, it might take days before someone finds out. That's the crazy part. People just disappear. That was the moment I realized. He was testing how much I understood. He wanted to see if I'd react, if I'd panic. He was studying me like he did his clients, watching for signs of weakness. He'd always been good at finding the soft spots in people. He just never thought I'd stop being soft. We passed a faded mile marker. I stared at it like it might be the last thing I saw. Then, flashing lights. At first, I thought it was a mirage. The heat made everything blur. But no, behind us, unmistakably, a patrol car. The siren wasn't on, but the lights danced like a second sun. Brandon cursed under his breath. I said nothing, just watched his knuckles tighten on the wheel. He didn't stop right away. Took another half-mile before pulling onto the shoulder. Rolled the window down halfway, the way guilty people do when they want to act normal. The officer approached slowly. Sunglasses, neutral tone. Afternoon, sir. License and registration? Brandon handed them over, feigning calm. Was I speeding? Not exactly, the officer said, then turned to me. Ma'am, are you okay? His voice was too pointed, not casual, not routine. I turned to him, met his eyes. Something in my face made him pause. Ma'am, he repeated, slower this time. Can you tell me your name? I nodded. Miriam Royals. And where are you headed today? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out at first. Then, he said if I died out here, no one would notice. The words came out so quietly I wasn't sure the officer heard, but his expression shifted. Slightly. Just enough. I see, he said. He straightened, looked at Brandon again. Sir, I'm going to ask you to step out of the vehicle. Brandon laughed, short and sharp. For what? For a conversation. I watched as the officer gestured to the side of the road. Brandon hesitated, then got out, slamming the door harder than needed. They spoke where I couldn't hear. I sat frozen, heart steady now, too steady, like it wasn't mine. Another patrol car arrived. A younger officer walked up to me gently. Ma'am, can you tell me if anyone forced you into this car today? No. But you didn't know where you were going? I nodded. And you felt unsafe? I looked at him. My voice was clear this time. Yes. He nodded, then asked if I wanted to step out and sit in their vehicle while they sorted things. That's how I found myself on the side of an empty Arizona highway, watching my son speak to the police. Calm at first, then louder. Hands moving. Face red. They say that after a certain age, women disappear. But I didn't disappear today. I was found. They didn't arrest him. Not yet. The first officer, the older one, came back to the car and told me I wasn't in any immediate danger, that they'd be asking more questions, that a detective would follow up. He said it kindly, gently, like someone talking to a woman made of paper. Do you have somewhere to go right now? He asked. I nodded. Home. Would you like a ride? I glanced over at Brandon. He was leaning against the patrol car now, arms crossed, sunglasses back on, mouth tight. A stranger I gave birth to. A man who once cried when he lost his favorite toy truck at the grocery store. He was 7. I remember because I went back and found it for him. In the cereal aisle, next to a box of Cheerios. No, I said. I'll wait for him to drive me. The officer hesitated. Are you sure? I gave him the same look I used to give my most difficult students. The kind that says, I'm old, not stupid. I'm sure. He nodded, said he'd be in touch, and walked back to his car. A minute later, they both drove off. Dust rose from the road. Silence returned. Brandon didn't say anything for a long time, just stared at the horizon. Then, what the hell did you tell them? I didn't answer. You made it sound like I was kidnapping you. Still, I said nothing. I didn't owe him a defense. You know what, Ma? He laughed, dry and sharp. This is why Tracy says we need to get you checked. You're paranoid, forgetting things, making up stories. I looked at him finally. I remember exactly what you said. He rolled his eyes. It was a joke. No, it wasn't. We drove the rest of the way in silence. The engine hummed, the wheels buzzed, and I sat with my hands folded in my lap like a girl on a school bus, waiting to arrive somewhere she didn't want to be. When we pulled into my driveway, the porch light was already on. I'd left it that way, always forgetting to switch the timer back after the season changed. The house looked tired, same as me. White paint peeling near the gutters. Wind chimes tangled on one side. Brandon didn't turn off the engine. You gonna tell anyone else? Like who? He shrugged. I don't know. A lawyer. Your old friends. That weird neighbor who's always watching us. I opened the door. You think this is over? He didn't reply. I stepped out and closed the door. The car idled a few seconds longer, then backed out fast and disappeared down the street. Inside the house, the air smelled like lavender and dust. I left the lights off. Just stood there in the dark, shoes still on, cardigan slipping off one shoulder. The silence wasn't comforting tonight. It pressed. I walked to the kitchen, poured water into the kettle. My hands shook slightly, but not from fear, from the weight of everything I hadn't let myself feel while I was in that car. The kettle boiled. I made tea, sat at the table. The clock ticked. I replayed the words in my head over and over. If she dies out here, no one will notice. It wasn't just a threat. It was a truth he believed, and that was worse. I took a sip of tea. The cup clinked gently against the saucer. On the fridge was a photo. Brandon at 10, missing front tooth, muddy knees, holding up a tiny fish. Behind him, my husband, Tom, with both hands on his shoulders. Tom's been gone 12 years now. Cancer, quick and cruel. He'd never have let things get this far. He'd never have let our son become the kind of man who drove his mother into the desert like an unwanted pet. But Tom wasn't here, and Brandon was. And now I had to decide, speak or stay silent, and wait for the next time. Because there would be a next time. The police might have thought it was nothing, a misunderstanding, a poor joke between a stressed-out son and his elderly mother. But I'd seen Brandon's face when he said it. He meant it. He'd calculated the risk. He'd weighed how long it would take for someone to miss me. I finished my tea, set the cup down. Then I got up and walked to the living room. Opened the small filing cabinet near the bookshelf. Inside were documents, property deed, insurance papers, my will. I added a note to the top of the stack, dated it. If anything happens to me, look at Brandon first. Simple. No drama, just facts. Then I called Marla, my neighbor. The weird one Brandon always rolled his eyes about. Retired nurse, lived 2 houses down. Always noticed when I didn't take in the mail. She picked up after 2 rings. "Hey there, stranger," she said. "You all right?" "No," I replied. "But I will be." Marla showed up 20 minutes later, still in her gardening gloves. I didn't bother turning on the porch light. The moon was enough. She looked at me for about 3 seconds before saying quietly, "Something's happened." I nodded. "You could say that." Inside, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her elbows resting on the wood, eyes steady. She didn't ask the kind of questions people ask when they only want gossip. She waited. That's what I liked about her. She never rushed silence. "He took me out on the highway today," I finally said. "Said we were going to a clinic. Then he told me if I died out there, no one would notice." Her mouth tightened. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Oh my God." She just breathed in slowly, like someone counting facts. "Did anyone hear him?" "Just me." "And then?" "The police stopped us, randomly. I think they saw his plates, maybe expired tags. I don't know. They asked if I was okay. I told them what he said." Marla leaned back, exhaling. "And?" "They let us go." Jesus. He laughed, drove me home. Said it was a joke. Marla reached over and put her gloved hand on mine. "You know it wasn't." "I know." We sat in silence again, the kind that hums with everything unspoken. Outside, a night train moaned somewhere beyond the desert hills. The kettle whistled. I poured her tea. "Tracy?" she asked finally. "She's behind it. I don't know how much, but she's part of it. She's been telling people I'm losing memory, that I forget things." "Do you?" I smiled faintly. "Only birthdays. Not threats." That made her snort softly. Then she turned serious again. "You should tell the police everything. File a statement." "They won't believe it. Not without proof." "Then get proof." I looked at her. The lines on her face deepened by shadow. "You sound like my husband." Then maybe he was right. After she left, I sat alone for a long time. The air smelled faintly of her gloves. Earth and mint. "Proof," she'd said. At 77, I'd never thought I'd have to gather proof against my own child. But here I was. I took my phone from the counter, scrolled through old messages. The last one from Brandon was 3 weeks ago. Don't forget your appointment. Tracy says you mixed up your meds again. Another lie. I scrolled further. Bank alerts, a few grocery deliveries, insurance mail. All automatic. My world had shrunk to lists and reminders. That's what happens when you start letting other people organize your life. They stop asking what you want. It was close to midnight when I opened the hallway closet and pulled out the small safe box Tom had bought years ago. Inside were his old ledgers, our marriage certificate, and a black notebook. The kind you keep receipts in. I'd started writing things there months ago. Dates, names, small moments that felt wrong but too petty to mention aloud. Now I saw how they connected. May 12th. Tracy suggested I let her refill my pills so I don't mix them. June 3rd. Brandon took over the car insurance to simplify things. July 8th. Bank card declined. Brandon fixed it. August 19th. I found 2 missing checks from my book. Bank error, he said. And today's date, already waiting for me to finish the sentence. September 2nd. He said if I die here, no one will notice. I closed the notebook and put it back in the safe. For a long while, I listened to the quiet house. Refrigerator hum, pipes ticking. You start hearing your own heartbeat at my age when nights get too silent. And that heartbeat sounded calm, not fearful, just steady. In the morning, I drove to the police station myself. The same officer from yesterday was there, the one who'd called me ma'am like I was a ghost. His nameplate said P. Gallagher. He looked up when I entered. Mrs. Royals? Yes. He rose halfway from his chair. Are you all right? I am, but I need to file a report. He motioned for me to sit. I told him everything again, in order. The clinic, the highway, the words. He kept writing, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he said quietly, You did the right thing coming in. Will anything happen to him? We'll have to investigate first. Did he ever hurt you physically? No, not yet. He hesitated, pen hovering. Do you believe he plans to? I met his eyes. I believe he's waiting for the right moment. He didn't write that down, just tapped the pen once and said, We'll start by checking his record. When I left the station, the sun was brutal again, the kind of heat that bleaches color out of everything. I sat in the car, engine off, and felt something like relief. Not because I was safe, but because I'd finally spoken. Before driving home, I stopped by the pharmacy. The young pharmacist looked startled when I asked for copies of my prescriptions. Is something wrong, Mrs. Royals? No, I said, not anymore. The first time I met Tracy, she brought lemon bars. That's her way of saying she's harmless, Marla said later. You should have been more worried. It was 6 months ago. Brandon had called ahead, said he was bringing someone. I remember I'd set out the good plates, wiped the picture frames, old habits. You grow up in a house where Sunday dinners mattered, and you never quite shake the need to straighten things before company arrives. Tracy came in all bright smiles and soft perfume, the kind that smells expensive without being obvious. She kissed the air next to my cheek and told me I had such a sweet little home. She was in her early 30s, maybe 32, blonde in that always fresh kind of way. Not a hair out of place, not a smudge on her flats. Her eyes flicked around my living room like a real estate agent taking mental notes. I hope you like lemon, she said, handing me a small plastic container. I bake when I'm nervous. I didn't know you were nervous, I replied. She laughed. Of course I am. Brandon talks about you all the time. That was the first lie. We had tea. She complimented the china, asked about the roses in the yard, said I looked so young for my age. Flatterers always overreach. I was 77 then, with knees that cracked when I stood and hands that couldn't open pickle jars anymore. I didn't need to be told lies about youth. When they left that evening, Brandon kissed my forehead and told me he was glad I liked her. I didn't say I hadn't said that. I just smiled. That's how it started. Then came the small changes. Tracy started coming around more often, dropping off meals, offering to help around the house. She said it was just to be kind, that she loved old people, which frankly is a phrase I've never trusted. You love a person, not a category. She began suggesting things, gently at first. Have you considered switching your blood pressure meds? I know a doctor who specializes in geriatric cases. You really shouldn't drive alone anymore. The sun out here is brutal. Brandon worries about you. We both do. Then she brought in a pill organizer, just so nothing gets mixed up. That was the second lie, because I hadn't mixed anything up, but I let it happen. That's the truth. I let her arrange the bottles, let her put her little handwritten stickers on each section. Morning, white. Evening, blue. I even thanked her. The third time she came over with groceries, she brought her laptop. I've been helping seniors set up online banking, she said sweetly, so you don't have to go into the branch so much. She knew where I kept my folders. She watched which key I used on the filing cabinet, said she was only helping me set up automatic payments for your own comfort. I told her I didn't like strangers in my finances. She smiled. I'm not a stranger. I'm family now, aren't I? That was the third lie. It was subtle. So subtle it almost passed for kindness. If I'd been a little more tired, a little more desperate for company, I might have missed it completely. But I saw how she moved around the house, always glancing to see what I was reading, what I was writing, always asking twice if I needed help, once to offer, once to insist. You're lucky, Marla said one day. Most folks your age don't get this kind of attention. Is it luck, I asked, if it feels like someone's measuring you for a box? Marla didn't answer. The last visit before the drive, the highway day, Tracy came alone. Said Brandon was busy with a call. She brought a folder. Just a few things we want to prepare, in case of emergencies. There were forms, powers of attorney, medical directives, access to my health records. All blank, all ready for signatures. She said it was just paperwork, just planning. I didn't sign. I told her I needed time to read it. She looked disappointed. That night, Brandon called. She didn't mean anything by it, he said. She just wants to make sure you're taken care of. I'm already taken care of. He didn't respond. I went to the kitchen, looked at my pill box. One of the labels was slightly peeled. I lifted it. Underneath, in tiny print, the name of a medication I didn't recognize. I looked it up. It was a sedative. Not mine. Not prescribed. That was the fourth lie. I didn't tell Brandon. I didn't tell Tracy. I just threw the whole box away and started fresh from the pharmacy. The one Marla's nephew managed. I asked for paper labels, not stickers, and I told him I'd be picking them up in person from now on. I want a witness, I said, even if it's just your security camera. He smiled. Yes, ma'am. The next time Tracy visited, she asked where the pill organizer was. I changed my system, I said. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. Whatever makes you comfortable. That was the fifth lie. The first sign that something had shifted came on a Wednesday. I was weeding the front garden, trying to rescue the poor lilies from the Arizona dust, when Brandon pulled up without warning. He didn't come alone. Tracy was in the passenger seat, sunglasses on, hair perfect as ever. He didn't even greet me properly, just leaned on the fence and said, "Mom, we've been talking. You shouldn't be out here in the heat anymore. It's dangerous." "I've lived through hotter summers," I said, straightening up. My knees cracked. "Besides, these lilies won't survive without me." Tracy smiled with that careful politeness people reserve for strangers. "We just want you to save your energy for more important things." "Like what?" "Appointments, health, maybe even moving closer to town," Brandon said. "There's a nice senior complex near Glendale. Pool, gym, medical staff on site. I'm not moving anywhere." He sighed, the way he always did when he thought I was being unreasonable. "It's not forever, Ma. Just temporary. Until we know you're okay." "I am okay." "Tracy says you've been confused. You threw away your medication last week." I felt my stomach tighten. "I changed pharmacies." "Without telling us?" Tracy's tone was light, but her meaning wasn't. "That's not safe." "What if you took the wrong pills?" "I didn't." She looked at me the way a nurse looks at a stubborn patient, with sweetness that tastes of pity. "We're only trying to help." Help. That word again. Always shaped like a gift, always carrying a lock inside. That evening, after they left, I found the spare key missing from under the porch flower pot. I'd kept it there for decades. The next day, I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. By Saturday, Tracy called to check in. "I stopped by earlier," she said lightly, "but I guess you were out." "I wasn't," I said. A pause. Then, too quickly, "Oh, must have gotten the wrong day." That was the sixth lie. 2 days later, a letter came. Not handwritten, but typed, formal. Royals Family Care Plan printed at the top. A list of suggestions. Simplify medication. Reduce solo driving. Adjust property management. Delegate power of attorney. At the bottom, in tiny print, Tracy's full name and credentials. Tracy Morgan, RN, Private Elder Support Consultant. I didn't know she had a title, or that she used it like a weapon. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in my black notebook, and underlined the date in red. Then I called Marla. "She's setting the stage," Marla said, after listening quietly. "They want to prove you're not fit to handle your own affairs." "For what?" "Money," she said simply. "Or control. Maybe both." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I don't have enough for anyone to scheme over. You have a house, a pension, and savings. That's enough." That night, Brandon called again, cheerful as ever. "Hey, Ma, did you read Tracy's plan? It's just some ideas." "I read it." "And?" "I burned it." He didn't laugh. "That's not funny." I wasn't joking. There was silence, and then softly, he said, "You're making this hard. I'm not the one making it anything." He hung up. After that, the visit slowed. A week passed, then 2. I started to think maybe the storm had blown over, but people like Tracy don't vanish. They regroup. The next time she appeared, it was a Sunday afternoon. She came alone, carrying a grocery bag, smiling too much. "I brought you some soup," she said. "You've lost weight." "Soup from where?" "I made it myself." "I'll eat later," I said, taking the bag and setting it on the counter unopened. She walked through my house like she owned the air. "You know, Brandon worries you're lonely." "I'm fine. I could stop by more often." No, thank you. She turned to me, the smile fading just a little. You don't have to be afraid, Miriam. I'm not afraid. You should be, she said softly, then smiled again, as if the words hadn't come out at all. When she left, I threw the soup away, didn't even open the lid. The smell of it made my stomach turn. That night, I locked every window, closed every curtain, slept with the lamp on, not because I feared shadows, but because I wanted to see clearly when the next lie came through the door. It started small. One missing pill. I'd counted them out of habit that morning. The white ones, the ones that keep my heart from dancing to its own dangerous rhythm. 90 tablets in the bottle when I'd filled the prescription. Last Thursday. Today there were 83, 7 gone. I checked the bathroom sink, the kitchen table, the trash. Nothing. I hadn't dropped them. I never left bottles open. I've lived long enough to know that carelessness is a luxury for the young. When I called the pharmacy, the clerk pulled up my record. You refilled early last month too, he said. No, I didn't. It says right here, Mrs. Royals, August 11th, picked up by authorized proxy. My stomach dropped. By who? He hesitated. By your daughter. I don't have a daughter. Silence. Oh, he said finally. Then maybe it was someone else on file? Could you check the signature? A pause, then a quiet, careful voice. It says T. Morgan. Tracy. Can you print me a copy of that authorization? Of course, ma'am. Do you want to pick it up or have it mailed? I'll come in myself. When I hung up, I stood in the kitchen staring at the phone. For a moment, I thought about calling Brandon. Then I remembered the way he said, "You're making this hard." No, I wasn't calling him. I was done asking permission to exist. I drove straight to the pharmacy. The young pharmacist, a polite man with kind eyes, printed the copy and slid it across the counter. You might want to talk to your doctor about this, he said softly. I folded the paper neatly into my purse. I will. On the way out, I stopped by the blood pressure machine near the door. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to sit for a moment. Think. Someone had used my name, my records, my prescriptions. Someone wanted control over what went into my body. That wasn't care. That was a cage. When I got home, I checked everything. Every bottle, every drawer, every scrap of paper. In the medicine cabinet, I found an unfamiliar orange bottle pushed behind the mouthwash. The label had my name. But the medication wasn't mine. Lorazepam, a strong tranquilizer. Unprescribed. That was the 7th lie. I put it on the counter. Watched it gleam under the kitchen light. Then I heard a car door slam outside. I froze. It was Brandon. No warning, as usual. He came in calling, "Ma? You home?" Like it was still his house. He walked into the kitchen and saw the bottle. For a moment, just one, he flinched. The tiniest flicker of panic. "Where'd you get that?" he asked. "You tell me." He frowned. "Must be a mix-up. Pharmacy error." "Again?" He didn't answer, just moved toward it like he meant to take it. I picked it up first. "I'll keep this," I said. "Ma, come on." "Don't." He looked at me the way a son shouldn't look at his mother. Calculating, impatient. "You're starting to sound paranoid." "Better paranoid than dead." That stopped him. He took a step back, hands raised. "No one's trying to hurt you." "Then why is Tracy signing for my prescriptions?" He blinked. "What?" "Pharmacy gave me the record. Her signature's on it." He opened his mouth, then shut it. That was all the confirmation I needed. "I'll be calling my doctor tomorrow," I said. "You don't need to worry about my health anymore." His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. You're making mistakes, Ma. Big ones. I've made plenty, but not this one. He turned for the door. You should rest. I'm done restin'. He hesitated in the doorway, then muttered, Tracy was right, and left. When the car disappeared, I locked the door, leaned against it, and laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because something in me had finally cracked open. It wasn't fear that came out. It was air. Clear, cold air. Freedom. I sat at the table again and wrote another line in my black notebook. September 14th. Found unauthorized medication in cabinet. Confirmed pharmacy forgery. Brandon involved. Then I took a photograph of the bottle and the paper, sent them to my email. Evidence for later. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every car on the street felt like a warning. But beneath all that, there was a calm, steady rhythm in my chest. Not fear. Preparation. At dawn, I brewed coffee and watched the sky turn from purple to gold. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger I used to know. Thinner, older, but awake. Marla came over just after 8, holding 2 muffins. You look like you haven't slept, she said. I haven't? Bad night? Important night. She set the muffins down. You found something, didn't you? I nodded. Enough to make it real. She poured us both coffee. So what now? Now, I said. We stop pretending. Marla stayed for almost 2 hours that morning. She didn't rush me, didn't interrupt. She just listened. To the words and to the pauses between them. When I finished telling her everything, the missing pills, the fake prescription, the forged signature, she sat back in her chair, folding her arms. All right, she said. Then it's time we stop waiting for them to make the next move. She was calm in a way that made me calmer. You still got that safe box of yours? Yes. Then gather every scrap of paper you've got. Statements, receipts, photos, whatever touches Brandon or that woman. Put it all inside. Don't throw away anything, and get copies. Digital, if you can. I already started, I said. She smiled, the corner of her mouth twitching. Of course you did. We drank coffee while the morning heat thickened outside. The sound of cicadas filled the air like static. Marla, I said quietly, you think they're trying to get rid of me? Her answer was simple. Yes. Not just my money? They already have your money in reach. What they don't have is control. That's what they want. I stared at the coffee in my cup. My son. My only son. Your son's grown, she said. But that woman, she knows how to push him. You stopped being a person to her the minute you said no. For a moment, I hated that she was right. But then again, the truth is the only thing that doesn't rot. By noon, she'd helped me pull out boxes from the closet. Old tax forms, hospital bills, insurance letters. We stacked everything on the table. I could see my whole life in that paper. Every decision, every proof of existence. While we sorted, Marla looked up suddenly. Do they have your house deed? No. Tom and I kept that separate. Originals in the bank box. Good. Don't let them near it. I smiled faintly. They'll try. They'll fail. That afternoon, she brought her nephew, the same one from the pharmacy. His name was Andrew, mid-30s, quiet, respectful. He came with a laptop and a small scanner. We're going to make backups, Marla said. Cloud storage. That way, even if they get into your house, they can't erase what's already out there. Andrew nodded politely. Ma'am, I'll set it all up. You'll have copies of every file, locked behind a password only you know. Thank you, I said. He smiled. Marla said you're not someone who lets people push her around. She's right. For the next hour, the small house hummed with the soft buzz of scanning. Paper in, paper out. I labeled every file myself. Evidence 1, Evidence 2, medical forgery, unauthorized refill. It felt strange, almost sacred, like documenting a crime scene where I was both victim and witness. Before Andrew left, he showed me how to access everything. If anything happens, he said, these files can be sent straight to the police or your lawyer. My lawyer's dead, I said, but I'll find another one. Marla squeezed my hand. You'll find the right one. When they left, I walked through the house, room by room, as if seeing it for the first time. Every chair, every crack in the wall, every photo, all of it had been part of my quiet, ordinary life. And now it was a battlefield. On Tom's old desk, I found his watch. Silver, scratched, still ticking. He used to say, "You can't control time, Miriam. You can only use what's left of it." I put it on. It still fit. That evening, the phone rang. I didn't pick up. It rang again. And again. When I finally looked, it was Brandon, then Tracy, then an unknown number. I turned the phone off. At 9, a knock at the door. I peeked through the curtain. Tracy, holding a grocery bag again, the same soft smile like painted porcelain. I didn't open. "Mrs. Royals," she called sweetly. "I just brought you dinner." I stayed silent. Another knock, louder this time. "Miriam, I know you're in there. Brandon's worried sick." The porch light illuminated her face, calm and patient, like a nurse waiting for consent. When she realized I wouldn't come out, she sighed audibly. "You're making this hard, you know that? You can't keep avoiding us forever." Her words lingered in the heat. Then the sound of footsteps, and her car starting. When the silence settled again, I went to the black notebook. September 18th. Tracy attempted contact at 9 p.m., claimed concern, refused entry, evidence secured. My handwriting looked different, sharper, tighter. I traced the letters with my finger and whispered, "No one's taking me quietly." Before bed, I put a chair under the front door handle. Not because it would stop anyone, but because it made me feel like I still had a say in who came in. Lying in the dim light, I thought about Marla's last words before she left. "People like that always think we're too old to fight. Let's prove them wrong." I smiled in the dark. For the first time in months, I slept without waking. She let herself in. I knew she would, eventually. Despite the locks I'd changed, despite the note I left for Brandon, despite the chair I'd started keeping against the door each night. Tracy found her way in. She waited for the perfect window, just like always. And that morning, I made the mistake of forgetting to check the back door after Marla left. I was in the kitchen when I heard the sound. A soft click, then heels on the floor, not knocking, not calling my name, just entry. I turned around. She was already halfway into the room, holding another grocery bag. Her face was composed, bright, as if we'd spoken yesterday about lunch plans. "Good morning, Miriam," she said. "You left your phone off again." I stared at her. "No, hello?" Still silent. She placed the bag on the counter, as if this were her home. "I brought almond milk, your favorite, and eggs, and some of that Greek yogurt you like." "How did you get in?" She looked up, surprised by the question. "Brandon had a spare. He worries when you don't answer." "You shouldn't be here." She smiled. "Come on now. Let's not pretend you don't need the help." "Everyone slips sometimes." "I didn't slip." Tracy walked toward the fridge, casually opening it. It's hot out. You really shouldn't be out of bed much. Your circulation's already. I stepped between her and the fridge door. I said, you shouldn't be here. That smile again, brittle around the edges. I'm trying to keep you safe. You forged my name at the pharmacy. That stopped her, for half a breath. Then, that was a misunderstanding. Brandon thought, you signed my name, picked up sedatives I wasn't prescribed, put them in my cabinet. She tilted her head. Maybe you forgot. No, I said calmly. I didn't. I documented everything. Dates, names, bottles, copies made, evidence secured. Her face shifted then, just slightly. Not fear, not yet. But recalculation. You're being dramatic. I didn't flinch. You're being criminal. For a moment, the silence between us was thick as syrup. Then she exhaled sharply and dropped the smile. You know, she said, you could make this easier. You really could. How? By letting go. You're tired. You're alone. Brandon's trying to do right by you. Brandon hasn't done anything right by me since he started listening to your voice more than his own. Her jaw tightened. I've been the only one keeping things from falling apart. You've been the one dismantling me piece by piece, with kindness. That made her laugh. Oh, please. You think you're some tragic heroine? You're old. Your memory's shaky. You forget things. You lose track of time. I remember every word you've said to me. Tracy stepped closer, too close. Her voice dropped low, flat. You really think anyone's going to take your side over mine? Some bitter old woman with a file folder? Yes, I said. Because I have time. And the truth. And just enough strength left to outlast you. She stared at me, and for a moment I saw it. The flicker of anger, cold and fast. Then it was gone. She straightened her blouse, picked up her purse. Well, she said lightly, if you're going to be hostile, I won't force my kindness on you. That's a relief. She paused in the doorway, hand on the frame. You should be careful, Miriam. At your age, accidents happen. I smiled. Then you should stay far away. She left without another word. I locked the door behind her. Then I went to the kitchen table, wrote another entry in my notebook. September 23rd. Home intrusion. Unlawful entry via spare key. Threats made. Witness, myself. Actions, documented, logged. Then I picked up the house phone and dialed my lawyer's office. I need to update my will, I said, and remove someone from all access. After she left, I didn't move for a long time. Just sat at the table, notebook in front of me, pen uncapped, hands still. The house was quiet in that way only old houses can be. Not silent, but full of tiny sounds. A settling floorboard, a faint hum from the fridge, the ticking of the wall clock Tom had bought for our 25th anniversary, still slightly off by 7 minutes, no matter how many times I fix it. 7 minutes. 34 years of marriage. 42 years of motherhood. And somehow, this is what's left. I got up and went to the hallway closet, the one I hadn't touched in months. Behind the extra linens and Tom's winter coat, which I still can't bring myself to give away, there was a box. Cardboard, soft at the corners. Inside, letters. All unsent. Not the kind people keep from lovers or old friends, but the kind mothers write and then never mail. For birthdays missed. For apologies swallowed. For truths choked down to keep peace at the table. They were all to Brandon. I pulled one out, dated 12 years ago. He was 30 then, still recovering from his divorce, full of anger and half-grown pride. In the letter, I had written, I know you blame me for things I never intended, for being quiet when your father was stern, for holding on too tight when you left. But I loved you more than anything. I still do. I hadn't signed it, just folded it and put it away. Another one, from the year he asked for help with the down payment. He'd come in with charts and promises, full of that old, charming hustle. I gave him what I could. He never said thank you. The letter said, "I'm not angry, just tired of buying love and calling it motherhood." I remembered the night I wrote it. Sitting on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders, the smell of rain in the air, but I'd torn it in half, taped it back together the next day. Another letter. No date. I'm afraid of what you've become around her. Not because you're cruel, but because you've learned how to ignore me with a smile. I raised you better than this. I just don't know if it took. I read them all. My own handwriting, different in each. Some tight with control. Others slanted, hurried, written in the kind of emotion that doesn't wait for neatness. I hadn't written anything like that in years. Not since Tracy arrived. And now, suddenly, I wanted to write again. But not a letter to him, a letter to myself. I took a fresh page and wrote, "You did not imagine this. You were not paranoid. You saw what you saw, heard what you heard. You were targeted, manipulated, minimized, and you were strong enough to notice before it was too late. You are not bitter. You are not weak. You are not crazy. You are awake." When I finished, I folded it, placed it on top of the stack, and tied the box closed. Then I placed it in the safe. These were not accusations. These were not pleas. These were records of all the times I'd let silence win. And now I wasn't. At dusk, I lit the porch light, even though I wasn't expecting anyone. It was something Tom always did. "Just in case someone good passes by," he'd say. "A light says you're still here." I sat by the window with tea and waited for dark to settle. In the distance, a few coyotes cried, a sound I'd heard all my life but never quite got used to. My phone buzzed once on the table. I didn't look at it. Not tonight. Instead, I thought about what would go in my next letter. This time, not unsent, and not to Brandon. The day he took me on the highway started like any other. Clear skies, dry heat. The kind of morning where the sun pushes through the curtains before you're ready. I'd made toast, poured 1 cup of coffee, not 2, not any more, and watched the sparrows gather around the empty feeder Tom had nailed to the pine. At 9:07, Brandon called. "Morning, Ma. Tracy made an appointment for you. Just a checkup, routine stuff. I'll pick you up at 10. That was the first I heard of any appointment. "Which clinic?" "Same one as last time," he said quickly. "You'll like this doctor. He specializes in memory care." "I'm not seeing a memory doctor. It's just to rule things out." "Come on, don't make this difficult." I didn't argue, not because I agreed, but because I needed to see him, face to face. There are things you can't measure over the phone. Tension, hesitation, lies between words. At 9:58, he pulled into the driveway. I didn't recognize the car. A rental, newer, cleaner, unfamiliar. Not his usual dusty sedan with the broken air vent. He stepped out wearing sunglasses, holding a bottle of water, smiling just enough. "You ready?" I nodded. He took my purse, without asking, and placed it gently in the back seat. Not the front, not next to me. That was the second thing. The third came 10 minutes into the drive. We weren't heading toward the clinic. We'd taken a different road, longer, quieter, stretched through parts of the desert where gas stations die and don't get replaced. I watched the signs change. Fewer exits, more sand, vultures circling farther out. I said nothing, because sometimes silence tells you more than questions ever will. He didn't explain the detour, just turned up the air conditioning and made small talk. How hot it's been, how expensive groceries are, how Tracy's thinking about going back to school. None of it meant anything. Then, without looking at me, he said, "If she dies out here, no one will notice." Just like that. No build-up, no humor, no softness. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just stared straight ahead, hands folded in my lap like I was back in church, listening to a sermon meant for someone else. He said it like it was a fact, not a threat. Like weather. Like gravity. And maybe that's what he believed, that age makes you forgettable, that the world's too loud to care about one old woman. We drove another 3 miles, then another. No music, no words. Then the lights appeared in the rearview mirror, flashing red and blue, small against the horizon, then closer, impossibly close. He swore under his breath. I kept still. The officer pulled us over just past mile marker 192. Nothing but dust and brittle weeds for miles. I remember the number because I thought, if this is where I die, at least someone will know where it happened. The officer approached, calm but firm. Asked for license, registration, the usual. Then he looked at me. "Ma'am, are you okay?" That question, so simple, so loaded, caught me off guard. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one had asked it in months. Not, "Do you need groceries?" or "Did you take your pills?" but "Are you okay?" as a person. I nodded, then shook my head, then said, "He said if I die out here, no one will notice." I hadn't planned to speak. The words just came, and something in the officer's eyes changed. The way a man shifts when he realizes the story isn't what he thought it was. Brandon got out of the car when asked. He argued, he gestured. He tried charm, then irritation, then calm again. They didn't arrest him. They just asked questions, took notes, let us go. He was quiet on the way back, didn't explain, didn't deny, just drove. And when we got home, I didn't cry, didn't scream. I sat in my chair, hands still folded, and realized that line, "No one will notice," wasn't just about location. It was about me. He thought I was gone already, erased, convenient. But I wasn't. And now I had names, details, a day, a place, a mile marker, a start. There was a second, a single, sharp second, just after he said it, when I thought, this might be it. We were on a stretch of highway where the road buckled slightly, where the desert pressed too close and the horizon looked like it might tip over and vanish. He had one hand on the wheel, the other on his thigh, fingers tapping. Calm, casual. If she dies out here, no one will notice. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone, like observation, like idle thought. The way someone might say, "This is a bad stretch of road," or "That cloud looks like a dog." I turned my head toward the window, but I didn't look at the view. I watched his reflection instead. In the glass. Slight. Blurred. But there. He didn't glance at me, didn't laugh, didn't take it back. That was when I knew. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a weighing of consequences. A test balloon. And the world stayed quiet. No break, no swerve. Just 65 miles an hour and the sound of wind. It would have been so easy. The shoulder was narrow, gravel scattered, soft dip into nothingness. I imagined the scene. Headline on the local paper. Elderly woman suffers fatal accident on remote stretch of highway. No foul play suspected. A tragic misstep. A distracted son. A moment of grief. He'd cry, I'm sure. He always cried well, when needed. I thought of the chair he'd chosen for me in the car. Back seat, passenger side. No airbag. Less visibility. Easy to lean across and unbuckle. Easy to forget. I'd asked nothing. He offered less. But what saved me, what always saves women like me, wasn't panic or luck. It was the years. You spend 7 decades watching how people move, how they circle what they want without saying it. You learn to read the weight of silence, the temperature of a room, the way kindness curdles just before it becomes something else. So I sat still, and I waited. He kept driving, talking, little things, weather, gas prices. You should sell the house, Ma. You'd be happier somewhere newer. He glanced at the rear view. You look tired. You made me tired. He didn't respond. I wanted to say so much more. That I knew what he was doing. That he'd broken something I can't describe. That no child should bring a parent to the edge of the world and call it care. But I didn't. Because you don't reason with someone mid-crime. Instead, I reached slowly for my bag. I opened the zipper just enough. Felt for the small recorder I'd buried under tissues. Marla's idea. Cheap, but good battery life. She'd bought 2. One for me, one for her brother's divorce hearings. It was already on. I didn't need it to catch the exact words. I just needed to catch his calm, the cold, the lack of anything. 32 minutes of driving, all of it documented. He didn't know. He pulled into a gas station somewhere near Sand Ridge, asked if I needed the restroom. I said no. He filled the tank in silence, didn't go inside, paid at the pump, got back in. Then the lights, red and blue, in the mirror. He flinched. I didn't. That moment, that tiny flinch, was everything I needed. Because it told me he knew he'd done something. Maybe not in action, but in thought, in plan. And now, someone else was watching. The officer stepped up, asked questions, looked at me like I was real. And when he asked if I was okay, I said what I hadn't planned to say. He said, "If I die out here, no one will notice." And that truth, spoken aloud, pulled the wheel back in my hands. I'd felt invisible for so long, I forgot that I could still be seen. They didn't arrest him that day, but they noticed him. That was enough for now. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The light was still thin, blue at the edges. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of black coffee in front of me, the notebook open, the recorder beside it. I played it again, his voice, calm, unbothered, floating above the hum of the car. I let the words fill the room until they became part of the air. Then I turned it off. Marla came over at 7. "You didn't sleep," she said. "No." "You thinking?" "I'm remembering." She sat down, pulled her glasses from her pocket. "So what's next?" "I'm done reacting," I said. "Now I plan." She nodded. "Good." We made a list. Not of revenge, I'm too old for that kind of fire, but of protection. Proof. Clarity. Step 1, duplicate everything. Step 2, inform a lawyer, not the family one, a new name, unconnected. Step 3, meet the police again with evidence. Step 4, call my bank, lock access. Step 5, rewrite my will. I could almost hear Tom's voice in my head. Order first, anger later. At 8, I called the police station. Officer Gallagher answered, the same one who'd stopped us. "Mrs. Royals," he said, "we were about to reach out to you. I've reviewed your statement." "I have more," I told him. "A recording and proof of forged prescriptions." He was silent for a moment. Then, "Can you come in today?" "I'll bring copies." Marla insisted on driving me. I let her. She parked out front and waited, engine running, hands gripping the wheel like she could protect me by willpower alone. Inside, the station was cooler than I remembered. Gallagher met me with a polite smile, led me to a small office with faded blinds. I laid the notebook, the recording, and the pharmacy paper on the table. He read everything slowly. When he reached the part about Tracy, he exhaled. You realize this could be considered attempted financial exploitation, possibly medical tampering. I realize, I said. He nodded. We'll need to interview your son. Do it properly, I said. Not gently. He'll lie if you give him space. Gallagher almost smiled. Understood. He asked if I was in immediate danger. No, I said. Not anymore. He doesn't know what I know. When we finished, he escorted me to the door. You've been through a lot, ma'am. I met his eyes. I'm still here. Back home, Marla made sandwiches neither of us ate. The house felt smaller now, but stronger, like it was on my side again. I called the bank next, told them to remove Brandon's co-access. The woman on the line hesitated. It appears your son made a recent withdrawal, she said. How recent? 2 days ago. How much? $6,000. The room tilted, then steadied. I took a slow breath. Understood, I said. Please freeze the account. By noon, I was at my lawyer's office, a woman named Judith Harris, mid-50s, sharp eyes, no patience for pleasantries. Marla had recommended her. What exactly do you want, Mrs. Royals? She asked. Protection, I said. And clarity. If I die tomorrow, everything goes to my grandson. Not to Brandon, not to her. Judith's pen scratched across the paper. Do you have proof of his actions? I brought it all. We went over every document, every forged note, every lie. When I finished, she looked at me differently. Not as a client, but as a witness. You've built quite a case, she said. I've had time. Before I left, she asked, Do you want to press charges now? Not yet, I said. Let him walk a little longer. He's used to walking free. Let him think I'm still quiet. Judith nodded. When you're ready, call me first. Outside, the heat hit like a wall. But it didn't feel suffocating anymore. It felt earned, like proof of survival. That evening, I cooked for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy, just chicken and potatoes, enough for 2. I ate one plate and packed the other into a container. I wrote Marla on the lid. The house was quiet. My body ached, but my mind was sharp. I'd done more in one day than I had in months. Before bed, I took Tom's photo from the mantel. I handled it, I whispered. The way you would have wanted. He smiled back, frozen in that old photograph. But I imagined his voice anyway. You didn't just handle it, Miriam. You took it back. I smiled too. Then I added one more note to my black book, the last line for the day, September 24th. They thought I'd fade quietly. Instead, I learned how to write my name in ink they can't erase. They called it a formal interview. Not a trial, not a charge. Just a quiet room with glass windows, 3 chairs, and a table too clean to feel safe. I wore my navy sweater, the one Tom liked, and brought nothing but the truth. Officer Gallagher met me at the door. You okay coming alone? He asked. I'm not alone, I said. I'm here with everything I know. He didn't argue. They'd already interviewed Brandon once. Separately. He'd played calm, they said. Cooperative, but thin on details. And when they mentioned the medication records, his hands had started to shake. Today was for my side. Official. Recorded. They offered me water. I declined. Gallagher sat to my left, A younger woman, uniform pressed to perfection, hair tied back, sat across. She introduced herself as Detective Morales, polite but not warm, the kind that doesn't flinch from ugly stories. "Mrs. Royals," she said, "this interview is being recorded. You are not under investigation. You are providing a statement related to potential criminal behavior by Brandon Royals and Tracy Morgan. Do you understand?" "I do." She pressed the recorder. The red light blinked. Then she said, "Please begin." And I did. I told them everything. No drama, no tears, just the facts, the pills, the forged signature, the drive, the voice recorder, the line on the highway, the way they crept in under the word help, the way they made care feel like confinement. I gave names, dates, times. I read aloud from my notebook. Let them hear the rhythm of each entry. Let them feel the weight of a woman who's been watching too long. When I described the highway, his voice saying if she dies out here, no one will notice. Morales leaned forward slightly, not a twitch of surprise, just a change in air. "Do you believe he intended to harm you?" "I believe he didn't care if I disappeared," I said. "And that's close enough." "Do you fear retaliation?" "I expect it," I said, "but I'm not afraid of it anymore." There was a long pause then, not uncomfortable, just full. Gallagher cleared his throat. "You mentioned in your written statement that you never signed power of attorney. That correct?" "Yes." "Yet he claimed to have medical authority over you during last year's checkup." "I never gave him that." "And Tracy?" "She tried to get me to sign. Brought forms. I refused." Gallagher nodded slowly. "And she picked up your medication how many times?" "3 that I can prove." He exchanged a look with Morales. She closed her notebook. "Thank you, Mrs. Royals," she said. "You've been incredibly clear." I smiled, just slightly. "I've had practice." She hesitated, then asked, "Is there anything else you want us to know? Anything off record?" I looked her in the eye. "I remember everything," I said. "Even when they told me I didn't. I remembered." Silence again. Then Morales stood. "You're not the first case like this," she said. "But you're the first we've seen come in prepared." I didn't feel pride, just steadiness. Outside, the sun was hot again, but less cruel. Marla waited in the car, knitting half a scarf she'd never finish. "You done?" she asked. "For now." She started the engine. "They'll press charges?" "They're close." "You okay?" I nodded. "I'm tired, but it's the right kind of tired." She handed me a folded paper. "Got this at the post office this morning. It's from him." Brandon's handwriting, sharp, rushed. I didn't open it. I held it in my lap the whole ride home, but never unfolded it. Some words come too late to matter. That evening, I sat by the window. Tea warm in my hands, porch light on. I watched a neighbor's child ride her bike in circles, laughing without checking behind her. That kind of safety, it used to be mine. I wanted it again. Not the childhood part, just the part where you believe no one's coming for your quiet. Before bed, I wrote my last line of the day. September 28th. They asked if I remembered. I do. I always did. I just finally said it loud enough for someone else to believe. They called a week later. Detective Morales, her voice steady but gentler this time. "Mrs. Royals, we've concluded the first phase of the investigation. We'll be pressing charges. 2 counts. Prescription fraud and attempted financial exploitation. We're adding a third if the DA agrees, attempted harm of a dependent elder." For a second, I didn't breathe. Then I said, "So it's real now." "It's real," she said. "He won't be allowed near you during the process. We've issued a no-contact order. You'll be safe." Safe. It's a word people use like a bandage. Thin, temporary, polite. But for once, it landed. After I hung up, I sat in the living room, staring at the sunlight cutting through the curtains, dust drifting like slow snow. I thought of Tom again. How he used to say that sunlight tells the truth about everything if you let it in. I let it in. Marla came that afternoon with a pie and a grin. "I heard," she said. "Half the town will by tomorrow." "I didn't do it for that." "I know," she said, "but still, good." We ate in silence for a while. She watched me the way a mother watches a newborn, proud, worried, reverent. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm going to live in my house, water my lilies, read, bake when I feel like it." "That's it?" "That's everything." The next day, a woman from Adult Protective Services came by. Younger than Morales, kinder than expected. She asked if I had family support. "I do," I said. "Her name's Marla." She smiled. "I meant your son." "I know," I said. "I gave you the right answer." She wrote something down, nodded, and left me a business card. I placed it in my black notebook, where all the other truths live now. That evening, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. But later, curiosity made me check the voicemail. It was Brandon. "Mom, I don't even know where to start. They came to the office. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Tracy said it was just for organization. I thought we were helping." His voice cracked. Practiced or not, I couldn't tell. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Please call me." I deleted it. I didn't hate him. I just didn't have room left for that particular emotion. Hate still ties you to someone. I'd done my time in that loop. 2 days later, I went to the post office to pick up mail I'd missed during the interviews. A small envelope waited. No return address. Inside, a photo. Brandon as a boy, about 9, sitting on Tom's shoulders, both laughing. On the back, in Tom's handwriting, "Keep them laughing." It felt like a reminder, not of them, but of me. That I used to laugh too, that I still could. I came home, placed the photo on the mantel. The house felt lighter somehow, as if the walls had been holding their breath for months and were finally exhaling. At sunset, Marla came by with iced tea. We sat on the porch, legs wrapped in blankets, watching the sky turn gold. "You think he'll go to jail?" she asked. "Maybe. Maybe not." "That doesn't bother you?" "I just wanted the truth on record," I said. "Justice isn't always the same as peace. But peace is what I wanted." She nodded, then smiled. "And you got it." "Almost," I said. "One more thing." The next morning, I went back to Judith's office. My lawyer. She greeted me with that same professional calm. "I'm here to finalize the documents," I said. She slid the folder across the desk. "Your will." Updated, notarized, witnessed. I read through every line. My house, to my grandson. My savings, to charity. My belongings, left as they are. Brandon's name nowhere on the page. Judith asked quietly, "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "This is what fairness looks like when it's late but still alive." She nodded and signed her part. Outside, the air smelled of rain, rare for October. I walked to my car slowly, the way you walk when there's nothing chasing you anymore. That night, I sat by the window again, porch light glowing softly, notebook open. I flipped to the last filled page, the one where I'd written, "They thought I'd fade quietly." Under it, I wrote, October 3rd. They noticed. The law noticed. The world noticed. I am seen again, and I'm still here, in my house, under my own name. I closed the notebook. For the first time, it didn't feel like a record of pain. It felt like proof of survival. The summer finally broke. By mid-October, the desert softened. The air smelled faintly of dust and citrus, the kind of scent that belongs to places still healing from heat. My garden, brown for months, was suddenly green again. The lilies came back. I hadn't expected them to. I thought I'd lost them, same as I'd almost lost myself. It was early morning when I stepped outside barefoot, coffee in hand, a sweater over my nightgown. The porch boards creaked under me. Familiar music. For the first time in a long while, the sound didn't make me tense. It made me grateful. Each small creak meant here, still here. Across the street, Mrs. Klein's grandchildren were chasing one another through fallen leaves, their laughter carried, sharp, and alive. I smiled, thinking of Reed, my own grandson, studying somewhere up north. He called me last week, not to ask for money, just to talk. I heard about Dad, he said carefully. I know. You okay, Grandma? I am. He hesitated. Do you still want me to visit for Thanksgiving? I want you to visit because you want to, not because you think I need supervision. He laughed softly. Then I'll come because I want to. After the call, I cried. Not because I was sad, because someone had finally spoken to me without agenda. That kind of kindness feels almost violent when you've lived too long without it. Now the days run simple. I wake with the sun, feed the birds, read the paper. Marla still drops by every other afternoon, pretending it's for tea, though it's really to check that I'm not bored. We gossip about the neighbors, plant herbs, argue about crossword clues. Sometimes we sit in silence, the kind that's full rather than empty. Brandon hasn't called again. I don't know where he is, and I don't ask. The police keep me updated. Formal, distant, professional. They say the case will take time. I tell them time is what I have most of. Tracy's license was suspended. That small victory felt heavier than I expected. Not because I wanted revenge, but because it meant she couldn't reach someone else's mother the way she reached me. Judith, my lawyer, mailed me certified copies of every document. The will, the statement, the recordings logged as evidence. I keep them in a folder labeled Things I Did Right. It sits where Tom's watch used to be. I like to think he'd approve of the trade. Sometimes, in the evenings, I still hear the highway faintly from here, the hum of trucks heading toward nowhere. It doesn't frighten me now. I imagine each set of headlights carrying someone like me, a woman, remembering the pieces she refused to surrender. The other night, Marla asked, "Do you ever wish you hadn't found out? That you could have just gone on believing they cared?" I thought about it. No, I said finally. Lies are like dim light. They make everything softer, but you start bumping into furniture. Truth hurts, but at least you stop bleeding in the dark. She whistled low. You should write that down. I just did. After she left, I sat on the porch long after dark. The sky was a wide bruise of violet and silver. Somewhere far off, a coyote called. I answered in my head, I hear you. I'm still here too. I thought of all the women like me, quiet, polite, told to trust, told not to make trouble. Women who disappear while still breathing. Maybe they don't even know they're fading until one day someone calls them confused instead of mom. To them I'd say this: we are not frail for remembering. We are not foolish for trusting once. We are dangerous only because we finally speak. The house clock struck 9, still 7 minutes slow. I let it stay that way. Some things deserve to remain imperfect. They remind you time is real. Before bed, I opened my notebook for the last entry. October 20th. The lilies bloomed again. The light found its way through. They thought my silence was surrender. It was preparation. I am not waiting to be noticed anymore. I notice myself. I closed it, placed it on the shelf beside Tom's photograph, and turned off the lamp. The porch light stayed on, just in case someone good passes by. And if anyone reads this, anyone with a mother, a grandmother, or a quiet old woman next door, check in. Ask if she's okay, not if she's taking her pills. Sit. Listen. Believe her the first time. Because if she ever goes missing, you'll want to know you noticed her while she was still alive. If this story reached you, share it. Tell someone about Miriam. Tell them we're still here.